So hey students, welcome to NCERT Solutions by Vedantu, where we find solution to all the problems which is given in your NCERT for all the chapters and for all the subjects. Now, let's look at the question we have right now. We have a simple question from the chapter Human Reproduction. So the question is question number 2.1. Let's quickly read the question first. So they're asking you simple, that is fill in the blanks. They're asking you to fill in the blanks with the appropriate option. Now, human reproduction. Human reproduction, is it sexual or asexual? We know in sexual reproduction there are involvement of two parents, and in asexual reproduction there's involvement of a single parent. In humans, we have two parents involvement and a genetically unique offspring is produced, and hence human reproduction is sexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction, because in humans there is involvement of two parents and the offspring, and the offspring which is produced is genetically unique. Then next option number B, humans are oviparous, viviparous and or oviviviparous. Well, oviparous are the organisms which give birth to a egg, while your viviparous organisms give birth to a young one. Example are humans. So humans are viviparous organisms. That is, we give birth to the young ones. Next question. Fertilization is dash in humans. Is it internal fertilization or external fertilization? In humans, it is internal fertilization, because fertilization happens inside the oviduct or fallopian tube, and later the growth of the child also happens inside the womb of the mother. So fertilization is an internal, right? Internal in humans. Now let's look at the next question. The next is male and female gametes are. We know gametes are a result of what? Meiosis. And whenever there is meiosis, there is reduction in the ploidy level, that is a diploid to haploid. So both male and female gametes in the humans are haploid in nature. They're what? Haploid. Let me just write a tick here. Haploid in nature. The next question, zygote is dash. Is it zygote is diploid or a haploid? We know zygote is a result of syngamy. And when there is a syngamy, there is a fusion of gametes. Haploid gamete, male haploid gamete, female haploid gamete, they fuse together to form a diploid zygote. Right? That's right. Your zygote is diploid in nature. Zygote is diploid in nature. The next one is the process of release of ovum. The process of release of ovum, or also known as what? Secondary oocyte, or also known as secondary oocyte. Why secondary oocyte? Because until the sperm comes and fuses with the secondary oocyte, it does not form the ovum. Very carefully. This is a very important concept which you need to understand in oogenesis. Right? The process of release of secondary oocyte from the mature follicle. Mature follicle is your Graafian follicle, is called as ovulation. That's right, ovulation. That is release of the secondary oocyte. When does it happen? It happens on the 14th day, when LH surge happens. For this question, you need to understand the menstrual cycle also. Next question, ovulation is induced by a hormone. I just now told you, LH surge, when there is increase in the concentration of LH. What is LH? Luteinizing hormone. Because of the increase of the luteinizing hormone, there is LH surge. And when LH surge happens, ovulation takes place, and this happens at the 14th day of menstrual cycle. Next question, very easy. The fusion of male and female gametes is called as? The fusion of male and female gametes is known as fertilization. The most easiest question of all time, fertilization. Now let's look at the next question. Fertilization takes place in which exactly location does the fertilization takes place? If you attended my lecture, you would know it happens in the fallopian tube. First point, it happens in the fallopian tube, or also known as oviduct. It happens in the fallopian tube or oviduct. But where exactly in the oviduct? Which exact part of the oviduct, or which exactly part of your fallopian tube? We know fallopian tube is divided into 3 different parts. But the fertilization, according to your new NCERT, when I say new NCERT, not last year, not previous year, the NCERT which was published 5 years back, according to that NCERT, the fertilization takes place in the ampulla region of your fallopian tube. Which region? Ampulla region. The previous NCERT which I studied from, probably like 8 to 10 years back, that had ampullary isthmus region, but right now you have ampulla region. So the fusion happens, the fertilization takes place in the ampulla region of oviduct or fallopian tube. Now let's look at the next question. Zygote divides to form. Zygote divides to form dash in which implanted in uterus. Now this is where confusion happens. We know when zygote divides, it increases the cell, increases in the cell number. That is, more cleavage is happening. We get blastomere. Initially we get blastomere. Then we get blastocyst. Before blastocyst, we also get a morula. But which of morula, blastomeres, or blastocyst gets attached to the uterus wall? That is implantation. The answer is blastocyst. Cyst. After encystation, after breaking of the zona pellucida layer, after breaking of the zona pellucida layer, your blastomere becomes blastocyst. So this answer here is blastocyst. Blastocyst is a structure which gets attached to the what? To the uterus lining. Very easy. Next, last question. The structure which provides they're asking you the structure which provides vascular connection between the fetus and the uterus. The vascular connection which forms the connection, the structure which is formed here is a structure which helps in exchange of your nutrients or release of excreta. The structure we're talking about here is placenta. Placenta is a structure which helps in the exchange of gases, exchange of nutrients, or release of the metabolic waste. So there it is. So question number 2.1. Draw a labeled diagram of male reproductive system. All they're asking you is draw a diagram. That's right. They're asking you to draw a diagram. For your convenience, to save the time, I have a diagram here, which is directly from your NCERT. But what I'll be doing here is I'll be explaining you the diagram. I'll be decoding the diagram for you. Let's get into it. Let me quickly decode the diagram for you. So we know male reproductive system, that is your male reproductive system, is divided into two parts. That is your primary male reproductive system as well as secondary male reproductive system. Now, what is this primary and secondary? Primary reproductive system, the primary reproductive system is involved in spermatogenesis. It is directly involved in the spermatogenesis, while your secondary sex organs are indirectly involved. Right? They're mostly involved in your transportation and other factors. Secondary sex organs. Your primary sex organs are directly involved in the spermatogenesis. And the organ, the structure here, which is the primary sex organ, is the testis. Your testis right here is the primary sex organ. Now let's look at the structure of testis. Now think of testis as a huge mansion. Now a huge mansion will have many rooms. These many rooms, for example, there are around 200 to 250 rooms. Now these 200 to 250 rooms are your testicular lobules. So each testis will have around 200 to 250 different compartments. That's right, testis is made up of 200 to 250 different compartments, and these compartments are known as what? Your testicular lobules. Testicular lobules are different rooms here, compartments. Now each room has windows, around 1 to 3 windows. Now these windows are your seminiferous tubules. This is not written here, but each testicular lobule has seminiferous tubules inside, and this is the location where sperm formation happens. Because inside the testicular lobules, we have seminiferous tubules. Seminiferous tubules has two type of cells: Sertoli cells as well as your spermatogonia, where your sperm formation takes place. Now, when the sperm is released from seminiferous tubules, it goes to the testicular first place. It reaches here your rete testis. From seminiferous tubules to rete testis. Now, after rete testis, it goes to vasa efferentia. After it reaches to epididymis. After epididymis, it reaches the vas deferens. From rete testis to vasa efferentia, epididymis, and then vas deferens. Now, vas deferens is the location where any sperm which is not proper functioning is been killed, or it is sent back, and that is the mechanism which is of vas deferens. Now if you look closely, vas deferens is ascending upside, right? Vas deferens is ascending up. Now, vas difference is ascending up. Let me change the color to purple, right? So vas difference is ascending upwards. Upwards is your abdomen, right? So vas difference is ascending upwards to the abdomen, and it loops over. What? It loops over the urinary bladder. Vas difference ascends to abdomen, it loops over the urinary bladder, and finally it reaches here, where your vas difference is connected with another duct. Vas difference is connected with another duct called as seminiferous vessels. Seminal vesicle. Now, seminal vesicle will provide secretions to your secretions which is coming from vas difference. Vas difference is carrying sperm. Let me clear this. Let me quickly clear the table, and so that we can write more, right? So here vas difference is carrying sperm. Vas difference is carrying sperm, and now we have the secretions from seminal vesicle. Seminal vesicle, right? Seminal vesicle. Now all the way they reach here. Now this is nothing but your ejaculatory duct. It is not labeled in NCERT, but please learn this location is the ejaculatory duct, where now it releases the secretions. Now it obtains the secretions from where? From the prostate as well as bulbourethral gland. So secretions from your sperm, which comes from your seminal vesicle, which is in your vas difference, then secretions from your seminal vesicle, secretions from your bulbourethral gland, secretions from your prostate glands. All these different three will constitute the sperm. Right? The secretions from these three is your sperm plasma and your sperm, which comes from your seminal vesicle. Together they are the sperm. Sperm which travels through the urethra. Urethra is a common passage for your sperm release and also urine release. Common passage. And finally, the sperm is ejaculated outside with the help of urethral opening here. Urethral meatus. Urethral meatus is the urethral opening here through which the sperm are ejaculated. That is the complete story of your sperm release, and also the different structures in your different structures in your male reproductive system. Now here another structure, external genitalia, which is your penis is the external genitalia in case of male, vulva in case of your female. The external genitalia, your male penis has a extra covering called as foreskin, that is a loose skin. Then it has erectile tissues. Can you see this one? These ones are erectile tissues. These are the erectile tissues. And then your tip of the penis is called as glans penis. Tip of the penis is called as glans penis. The other structure which you need to know here is the covering. The cup-like structure which is holding the testis, that is your scrotum. Scrotum helps in maintaining the temperature, the optimum temperature for your spermatogenesis, that is lesser 2 to 3 degrees lesser than the body temperature. That is the complete structure, complete explanation for your male reproductive system. Draw a labeled diagram of female reproductive system. Just for the convenience, I have a diagram for you from your NCERT. So NCERT gives you this diagram. I'll quickly explain you each and every part of it, right? So the female reproductive system is divided into two different type of organs. That is primary sex organs as well as secondary sex organs. Now these primary sex organs are your ovaries. The primary sex organs are the ovaries, and secondary sex organs are your fallopian tube, uterus, and cervix and vagina. Primary sex organs are directly involved in your gametogenesis, in this case oogenesis. So we have ovary here. Let's look at the primary sex organ. We have the ovary. So ovary occur in pair. First and foremost, ovaries occur in pair. So we have two sets of ovary, one here and one here. Now ovary here is attached. It is attached to the pelvic wall and also the uterus with the help of different ligaments. Now this ovary has an outer covering. The outer covering of the ovary is called as epithelial, and inside we have the stroma. Now the stroma again is divided into the peripheral cortex and inner medulla. Now let's look at the structure which is closest to the ovary. Now let me just clear this. The structure which is the closest to the ovary is your fallopian tube, or also known as oviduct. Fallopian tube or oviduct. Now this fallopian tube has different parts. Now let's look at the part which is the closest to your ovary. The part which is closest to your ovary is infundibulum. Now infundibulum is a wider region which is the closest to the ovary, and it has a finger-like structures, and these finger-like structures are known as fimbriae. And what is the function of fimbriae? Fimbriae helps in collection of ovum or the egg after ovulation. So fimbriae helps in the collection of the egg. Then the egg travels to the infundibulum. From infundibulum, it goes to a much more wider area called as ampulla. Now, ampulla is the region where fertilization takes place. Ampulla is the region where fertilization takes place. Now, after ampulla, you have the isthmus region. Isthmus is a narrow lumen, narrow region after your ampulla. Now, after isthmus, we have a wider area known as the uterus. Uterus. Now, uterus is also called as womb. Uterus is also called as womb. Now, uterus is almost resembles a inverted pear. The structure of the uterus, NCERT says it resembles a inverted pear, and the structure, right? The structure at the end of uterus, you have the cervix, and outside the cervix, you have the vagina, and you also have a here canal. The cervix canal is called as cervical canal. So the structure which is present between vagina and the uterus is called as cervix. Cervix plus vagina form the birth canal. Birth canal. Now let's look at the structure of the uterus. Uterus mainly has three different layers. First, the outer layer is called as perimetrium, which is a thin walled outside. Then you have myometrium. Myo means what? Muscle. Myo means muscle. Muscular layer called as myometrium, which is involved in the contraction during the childbirth. Then you have endometrium. Endometrium is a glandular structure which undergoes cyclic changes based on the hormonal levels during the menstrual cycle. Those are the different parts of your female reproductive system. You have primary, secondary sex organs. Primary sex organs are your ovary. Secondary sex organs are fallopian tube, uterus, cervix, and vagina. Now, other than these parts, you also have the external genitalia, that is vulva, and also the set of mammary glands. Those are also involved in your female reproductive system. Write two major functions, each of testis as well as your ovary. They're asking you two functions of testis, two functions of ovary. Now let's start with testis. Please write down with me. Please write down. This is very important. Testis. Testis has first main function of the testis is to produce sperms. First main function of testis is to produce sperms. How? By spermatogenesis. Spermatogenesis produces sperm. Where? Inside the seminiferous tubule. Then you also produce, testis also produces the male, okay, I'll write it here, male sex hormones. The male sex hormones are your testosterone or androgen, which is produced by Leydig cells, Now, let's look at the ovary. Those are two functions. The first function is production of sperm. Second function is production of male sex hormones, testosterone, which is androgen, produced by your Leydig cells. Second, let's look at ovary. Again, the main function of ovary is to produce the ova or ovum with the help of oogenesis. Second, again, main function is the female sex hormone. Release of the female sex hormone. The female sex hormones such as what? Such as your estrogen, and progesterone. Those are the two main examples of all the primary sex organs. That's right. Testis as well as ovary, both of them are what? Both of them are primary sex organs. The main function of primary sex organs is to produce the gametes, that's sperms, with the help of spermatogenesis and testis, release of the ovum in ovary with the process of oogenesis, production of gamete, then also release of the sex hormones. In the male, we have the testosterone, which is released by the Leydig cells, which is present in the interstitial space. Then you also have the female sex organs, just estrogen and also progesterone. Now, a question for you: who can tell me which structure forms the estrogen? If you have studied the menstrual cycle, you'll be able to answer this very easily. how is estrogen produced? Let me know in the comment section how estrogen is produced. Describe the structure. Describe the structure. Okay, let me just go back. That was your answer. Can we describe the structure of seminiferous tubule? They're asking the structure of seminiferous tubule. Before the structure, you need to understand what is seminiferous tubule. Right? What is seminiferous tubule? We know testis. Testis is made up of around 200 to 250 compartments. Testis is made up of around 200 to 250 compartments called as your testicular lobules. Testicular lobules. Now, inside this 250 compartments or testicular lobules, we have around 1 to 3. We have 1 to 3 highly coiled structures. These highly coiled structures are called your seminiferous tubules, and this is the location, this is the exact location where sperms are produced. This is the location where sperms are produced. Now let's look at the structure of it. They are asking you to describe the structure. So in order to describe the structure, you need to draw the structure. So I advise you to draw the structure and then describe it instead of just describing it. So we know seminiferous tubules are present at least 1 to 3 highly coiled structures. They are present inside your testicular lobules. Now, next information is the the seminiferous tubules has two type of cells. The seminiferous tubules has two type of cells in the inner lining. What are the two type of cells? The two type of cells are your spermatogonia, as well as Sertoli cells. Now these are the two different type of cells which are present inside the seminiferous tubules. Now if you look at the structure of each one is a seminiferous tubule here. Each one is a seminiferous tubules. Inside the seminiferous tubules, as I mentioned earlier, you can see two different types of cells. The first type of cell is your spermatogonia, which undergoes, let me change the color of the pen. Spermatogonia, which undergoes meiosis and produce the sperm. Meiosis undergoes and produces sperm. Then we have Sertoli cells. Sertoli cells are also called as your nurse cells. What do? They provide nutrition. They provide nutrition to the growing germ cell. Clear? Now, if you look also inside, there is also called as spermatozoa. If you have learned spermatogenesis by now, you need to know spermatozoas are your sperm cells. Clear? Now, that is the structure inside the seminiferous tubules. What about outside the seminiferous tubules? If you look outside the seminiferous tubules, this red area is called as interstitial space. Now, in this interstitial space, we can find blood vessels. That's why it's red in color. You can find what? Blood vessels. You can also find what? White blood cells. What do you mean white blood cells? In the NCERT says a line. Other immunologically competent cells. They are nothing but your WBC. That's a trick NCERT is playing with you. They're not telling you directly exactly what is present there, but they're telling you immunologically competent cells. Those are your white blood cells, also called as WBC. Now, what is the most important? Now, in this interstitial space, you have something called as interstitial cells. Also known as Leydig cells. These Leydig cells produce the male sex hormones. What are the male sex hormones? The male sex hormone I'm talking about here is the androgen. Also known as testosterone. That is the description of your seminiferous tubules. So you need to know what is seminiferous tubules, what is the function of seminiferous tubules. That is production of sperms. Inside the seminiferous tubules, you have two different types of cells, inner lining, Sertoli cells as well as spermatogonia. Spermatogonia undergoes meiosis and produces the sperm. Sertoli cells provides nutrition to the growing germ cells. Then you have spermatozoa, which is the sperm. Then you also have interstitial space. In interstitial space, you have blood vessels, WBC, and interstitial cells. Now, these interstitial cells are also nothing but your Leydig cells, which produces your male sex hormone. That is your androgen, also known as testosterone. There it is, the entire description of seminiferous tubules. What is spermatogenesis? They're asking you what is, one second, why is it happening like this? They're asking you what is spermatogenesis. And what is the spermatogenesis? Briefly describe the process of spermatogenesis. First and foremost, we need to know spermatogenesis is the process of production of sperms. Spermatogenesis is a process of production of sperms. Sperms are your male gametes in your humans. In the male gametes are known as your sperms, and spermatogenesis is the process where sperms are formed. Now, let's understand what is the process of spermatogenesis and when does it start and everything. Now, during puberty, your spermatogonium, the same spermatogonium which is present in the inner lining. It is present in the inner lining of your seminiferous tubules. Spermatogonia is present in the inner lining of seminiferous tubule along with Sertoli cells. Now, this seminiferous tubule divide, they grow in number, they grow stronger by mitosis. With the help of mitosis, let me change the color for your convenience. Why am I not able to change the color? With the help of mitosis, they grow in number, they grow stronger. Now, once such spermatogonia starts to undergo meiosis 1. Once such spermatogonia starts to undergo meiosis 1, and that spermatogonia is called as primary spermatocyte. Known as what? Primary spermatocyte. Now, primary spermatocyte, remember, spermatocyte is a result of mitosis. So, there is no change in ploidy. It is 2n. It is what? 2n. Your spermatogonia is also 2n. Now, this primary spermatocyte undergoes meiosis 1 to produce secondary spermatocyte. Produces what? Secondary spermatocyte, and these secondary spermatocyte, as a result of meiosis 1, which is your reduction division. Hence, there is a change in ploidy from 2n to n. Now, your secondary spermatocyte is haploid in nature. Is what? Haploid. Primary spermatocyte is diploid. Please remember this. This can be asked as a question in your NEET examination also. What is the ploidy level of your primary spermatocyte? What is the ploidy level of your secondary spermatocyte? And also, this entire process can be asked in your board examination. So, very important concept, very important for you to understand spermatogenesis and also oogenesis. Right? Now, secondary spermatocyte. Now, secondary spermatocyte undergoes meiosis 2. We know meiosis has two parts, meiosis 1 and meiosis 2. Now, when your secondary spermatocyte undergoes meiosis 2, it produces four haploid spermatids. It produces four haploid spermatids. That is a result of complete meiosis. Now, these spermatids, do they look like a sperm? No, they do not. Right? They need to get transformed now. They need to get transformed to become your mature sperm cells. This transformation is known as spermiogenesis. Undergoes spermatogenesis. Right? Spermiogenesis. And this spermiogenesis makes sure that you have mature sperm now. Now, this mature sperm, what do you do? This mature sperm will go embed its head inside Sertoli cells until insemination. Until insemination, sperm will go embed its head inside the Sertoli cell for more nutrition. Later on, once insemination happens, that is release of sperms from where? From your seminal vesicle. The sperms will be released, and finally the end of the cycle. There it is, the complete brief discussion about your spermatogenesis. Name the hormones. It says name the hormones involved in regulation of spermatogenesis. Which are the hormones which are involved in spermatogenesis? To understand this, you need to know the first hormone. The first hormone which is main hormone, which is the factor which determines the spermatogenesis is gonadotropin releasing hormone. The first hormone which is released from your hypothalamus, that is gonadotropin releasing hormone. Gonadotropin releasing hormone. Gonadotropin releasing hormone is released from your hypothalamus, also can be written as GnRH. Now, increased level of GnRH. Now, GnRH is released in your hypothalamus, and increased level of GnRH will stimulate. Listen very carefully. Increased levels of GnRH will stimulate the anterior pituitary. Increased level of GnRH will stimulate the anterior pituitary, which stimulates the secretion of two other hormones. GnRH stimulates anterior pituitary, which in turn releases or secretes two types of hormones known as LH, which is luteinizing hormone, and also FSH. These are two hormones which play a crucial role in spermatogenesis. Now let's look at the role of each one of them. Let's understand what LH, the role of LH, that is luteinizing hormone. LH acts on, I repeat, LH acts on, let me write it properly, LH acts on Leydig cells. LH acts on Leydig cells. Leydig cells produce your androgen, and androgen plays a crucial role in spermatogenesis. FSH acts on Sertoli cells. FSH acts on Sertoli cells. Now we know Sertoli cells are also known as what? They are also known as Sertoli cells are also known as nurse cells, which cares nutrition. They provide nutrition. Right? Sertoli, it's Li. One second. Sertoli cells. Sertoli cells provide nutrition or any kind of help for the spermatogenesis. Again, spermatogenesis. Now, those are the different hormones which are involved in spermatogenesis. First one is your GnRH, gonadotropin releasing hormone, which stimulates the anterior pituitary. Anterior pituitary releases two different types of hormones, that is FSH and LH. LH acts on Leydig cells. LH acts on Leydig cells, which produces androgen, and androgen plays an important role in the spermatogenesis. The second hormone is FSH, that is follicular stimulating hormone. FSH acts on Sertoli cells, which are also called as nurse cells, and these cells are nursing or helping the spermatogenesis. That's it for today. Thus the answer of the question, that is, name the hormones present involved in the regulation of spermatogenesis. The question says, define spermiogenesis. They're asking you to define spermiogenesis and also spermiation. So they're asking you to define spermiogenesis and spermiation. First and foremost, you need to know both these processes. Both these processes, that is spermiogenesis as well as spermiation, right? They are part of spermatogenesis. Both of these processes are part of spermatogenesis. And this concept, right, the concept between spermiogenesis and spermiation is equally important for your CBSE board, and also your NEET examination. This question has been asked in NEET examination several amount of time. What is the difference between spermiation and spermiogenesis? Now, as I mentioned earlier, both the processes are involved in spermatogenesis. Now let's quickly look at what is spermiogenesis. Spermiogenesis is a process. I repeat, spermiogenesis is a process where spermiogenesis is a process. Let me just write so that you don't get confused. Let me write it down. Spermio. Please focus on the spelling here and the words. Spermiogenesis is a process in where your spermatids are transformed. Spermatids are transformed. Let me write it here. They are transformed into spermatozoa. Spermatozoa is also known as sperms. Spermatid, which is the result of your second meiotic division. Spermatid, which is the result of your secondary meiotic division, undergoes transformation. It transfers, it changes its structure into sperms, and the process of conversion of spermatid to spermatozoa is called as spermiogenesis. Now, what about spermiation? So once the sperms are produced, right? Once the sperms are produced, these sperms will embed, right? They'll take their head, they will go get stuck inside the Sertoli cells. I repeat, once the sperms are produced, right? Now we have the sperms. Now what happens to the sperms? After spermatogenesis, the sperms which are produced, right? The sperms will go embed its head into the Sertoli cells. And once the time comes, the sperms are released, and once the time comes, the sperms are released from where? From seminiferous tubules. The sperms are released from seminiferous tubules. That process of release of sperms is called as spermiation. The release of sperms from seminiferous tubule is called as spermiation. Now if you understand, if you want to look at more into it, let's quickly look at the structure which is given in your NCERT. So NCERT says here, this is your spermatozoa, spermatid. Transformation of spermatid to spermatozoa is your spermiation. Then you have your sperm. Can you see the sperm is embedding its head into the Sertoli cells, and release of this sperm from the Sertoli cells, from the seminiferous tubule, is called as spermiation. There it is, the complete definition of both spermiation and spermatogenesis, and also spermiation. All these concepts are very important for your boards and also the NEET examination. If you have any doubt, please let me know in the comment section. I will solve the doubt. Draw a labeled diagram of sperm. Now I have a diagram for you. Let's quickly look at the diagram, and I'll help you to explain the diagram, and I'll show you the functions of each part. Okay, so if you look at the sperm structure, right, the structure of the sperm, actually this structure is microscopic. It is a microscopic structure. It's a microscopic structure, but it is again divided. If you look closely at the diagram here, the division is mainly into 4 types. That is your head region. Let me change the color. Let me quickly change the color. What is happening? 1 second. Let me change the color. I think red is better. Yeah. So when we have head region, the first part, then we have the neck region, then we have the middle piece, and then we finally have the tail region. So head region, neck piece, middle piece, and tail region. Now look closely at the outer structure, the complete envelope of the sperm. If you look closely, the envelope which I'm talking about here is the plasma membrane. The plasma membrane completely envelopes the sperm. Now let's look at the head region. What exactly is present in the head region? In the head region, if you look closely enough, there is a presence of elongated haploid nucleus. In the head region, you can find haploid nucleus, which has what? Which has the chromosomal material. So in the sperm, the head region is the most important part because it contains the genetic material. It contains the genetic material which needs to get transferred during fertilization. Clear? Now, if you look at the anterior portion, of the head region, you have a cap-like structure. You have a cap-like structure known as acrosomes. Acrosome is a cap-like structure which is present towards the anterior portion of the sperm. What is the function? The function here is these acrosomes has numerous enzymes, so many different types of enzymes which help in fertilization of the ovum. Now, a question for you. Anyone in the chat later on, I'll check it. Anyone in the chat who can tell me what is the name of the enzyme? What are the different types of the enzymes? What are the different names of the enzymes which are present in the acrosome? Let's see who can tell it. Now let's look at the neck piece. The neck is the connection between your head as well as middle piece. Neck is the connection between head as well as your middle piece. If you look at the middle piece, it is composed of many mitochondria. Exactly. Many mitochondria are present in the middle piece, which will provide. What does mitochondria do? We know mitochondria is energy house, right? It's the powerhouse of the cell. Exactly. Provides power here. It provides energy, right? Energy source for swimming. Why swimming? Because once it goes to the vaginal tract, right? When the sperms are released, it needs to move. It needs to move in the vaginal tract. So energy is given by your middle piece. But do you know, once the sperm is reached into the cervix in the female reproductive tract, just the mitochondria is not enough. In fact, the sperms will undergo a separate process called as capacitation. Let me know in the comment section if you want to know what is capacitation. I'll make a separate video on what is capacitation, or if you want to know now itself, go on Vedantu NEET English, where I have made a separate video on what is capacitation. You can learn from there. So capacitation is nothing but activation of the sperm, right? Then you have finally the tail portion, which helps in the mobility, like a flagella in a bacteria. Bacteria has flagella for motility. Similarly, you have the tail region, which provides the motility to the sperm. There it is, the structure of the sperm completely decoded for you. What are the major, they're asking you, what are the major components of seminal plasma? They're asking you what are the major components of seminal plasma, not semen. Not semen. They're asking you the major constituents of seminal plasma. So you need to know the major components of seminal plasma in the male reproductive system, right? The major components of seminal plasma in male reproductive system comes from the secretions from your male accessory glands. So the main secretions come from male accessory. One second, let me erase it. Let me write properly. The secretions from your male accessory glands. Now, what are these male accessory glands? The male accessory glands I'm talking about here is your seminal vesicle gland, bulbourethral gland, and also prostate gland. Let me write you here. The first one is your seminal vesicle gland. Seminal vesicle gland, which are present in a pair. Seminal vesicle glands, which are present in pair. Then we have the prostate gland. One second, let me erase this. The second is your prostate gland. Let me use the color. Prostate gland, which is present single. Prostate gland, which is present as single. And finally, the secretions from the bulbourethral gland. Bulbourethral gland is also known as, let me know in the comment section what is bulbourethral gland is also known as. I'll give you a hint. The hint is it starts with a C. It starts with a capital C. Bulbourethral glands, which are present also in a pair. So the secretions from all these glands constitute the secretions from all these different accessory glands constitutes the presence of in your seminal plasma. So seminal plasma is mostly rich in seminal plasma is mostly rich in fructose. Is rich in fructose, and also it is rich in calcium, which provides the motility. Fructose provides the energy, and also a lot of enzymes. And along with this, the bulbourethral gland also provides mucus, which lubricates your penis during the coitus. So that is mucus, which is produced by your bulbourethral gland, which lubricates the penis during the coitus. So those were the different constituents of the which is present in your seminal plasma. So one can say all the secretions from your seminal glands, the secretions from prostate gland, secretions from your bulbourethral glands constitute the seminal plasma. Let me quickly tell you one more concept here. Seminal plasma. One second. The seminal plasma. Let me just write this. Seminal plasma plus the sperms. Seminal plasma plus the sperm constitute your semen. This is the difference between seminal plasma, sperms, and the semen. What are the, let me change the color here. No. Let me change the color. What are the major functions of male accessory ducts and glands? They're asking you the major functions of ducts and glands. Now let's try to identify which are the ducts, which are the glands first. For that, I have an image for you. Now let's look at the image of the male reproductive system here. Let's identify the ducts first. Right, ready with me? So ducts, which are, first duct is your rete testis. Rete testis is the first duct. Second duct is your vasa efferentia. Third is epididymis, and then you have your vas deferens. These are the different ducts which are part of your male reproductive system. Now, all these ducts has one function, that is transportation. The main function of your ducts, is transportation and storage of sperm. One second, let me write it properly. Still getting used to this pen. That is transportation and storage of transportation and temporary storage. I'll write here temporary storage of sperm. That is the main function of all the ducts. That is the passage, the way the sperms are transferred. That is, we know the sperms are produced in the seminiferous tubules. From seminiferous tubules, the sperm travels out of the seminiferous tubules, is known as spermiation. So once spermiation happens, the sperm travels out of the seminiferous tubules. It travels from rete testis. It travels to rete testis. From rete testis, it goes to vasa efferentia. From vasa efferentia, it goes to epididymis. From epididymis, it reaches to vas deferens. From vas deferens, it connects. From vas deferens, it connects to another duct, which comes from where? Which comes from seminal vesicle to form ejaculatory duct. That is your sperm movement. So these are the ducts which help in transportation of sperm and also temporary storage of the sperm. Now let's look at the glands. What are the important glands here? The important glands here which you need to focus on is the three glands. The three main glands which here are seminal vesicle gland. Let me change the color. The first gland which is important here is the seminal vesicle gland. Second is prostate gland, and the third one is bulbourethral gland. Your seminal vesicle gland is found in pair. Prostate is found single. Bulbourethral gland is also present in pair. Bulbourethral gland is also called as Cowper gland because it helps in lubrication. That is the function. The main function of the glands here is to provide nutrition in the form of seminal plasma. That's right, seminal plasma. The secretions from these three glands is called as, I repeat, the secretions from these three glands is called as seminal plasma. The seminal plasma mainly constitutes fructose plus certain enzymes and also calcium. These are different constituents of your seminal plasma which is liberated, which is secretions of your glands. What are the glands? Seminal vesicle gland, prostate gland, and also bulbourethral gland. Now bulbourethral gland also produces mucus which helps in lubrication of the penis during the coitus. There it is, all the answer to the question, that is what is the function of ducts and glands in the male reproductive system. If you have any doubt, related to this subject, let me know in the comment section. I will personally reply to the comments. They're asking us what is oogenesis. Give a brief account of oogenesis. Oogenesis is a process of formation of your ovum. Oogenesis is a type of gametogenesis where the females produce the egg or the ovum. Now let's quickly look at the what is the different steps in the oogenesis. The oogenesis, first and foremost, the oogenesis start at the embryonic stage. Oogenesis starts at the embryonic stage. At the embryonic stage itself, the oogenesis starts. That is a female fetus. Before the fetus itself, at the embryonic stage, the female will have lot of structures known as oogonia. And these oogonia are present in millions of number as a result of mitosis. Because of mitosis, millions of oogonia are present, and after the birth of the child, no more oogonia are added. So whatever the oogonia which is present initially at the embryonic stage, the same number of oogonia will be there. No more addition. Subtraction will happen, but no more addition of oogonia after the embryonic stage. Now this oogonia, this is before the birth. All this is happening before the birth. That is, oogonia starts to undergo meiosis 1. Let me change the color. It will be easy for you to understand. So the oogonia which is present in the embryonic stage, which is the result of mitosis, a lot of oogonia has been formed. Now one such oogonia starts to differentiate. One such oogonia starts to differentiate now. Right, one starts to differentiate, it grows in size. One such oogonia starts to differentiate and grows in size. We know it as primary oocyte. The primary oocyte is a structure which undergoes, right? Oogonia undergoes differentiation, it grows in size. We know it as primary oocyte. Now this primary oocyte starts to undergo meiosis 1. This primary oocyte starts to undergo first meiosis, that is meiosis 1. But it does not finish the meiosis 1, that is it gets arrested. It gets arrested at prophase 1 at diploidine stage. Prophase 1 at diploidine stage, the process has been completely stopped. That is, the primary oocyte starts to undergo meiosis 1 but does not finish meiosis 1. In fact, it gets arrested at prophase 1 at diploidine stage. Now once the it gets arrested here, right? It's arrested now. Your primary oocyte is arrested. Then that is the birth of the child. The child will grow. The child reaches puberty. Once the female child reaches the puberty, the meiosis one which had started before the birth of the child, the meiosis one which had started before the birth of the child finally finishes. So the meiosis one which has started here, the meiosis one which had started before the birth of the child will be finished when the female child reaches puberty. So finally, when the female child reaches puberty, the first meiotic division, the first meiosis one is completed, which results in the formation of the secondary oocyte, and also the first polar body. Now this secondary oocyte, we know meiosis has two stages, meiosis 1 and meiosis 2. So this secondary oocyte starts again. It starts to undergo meiosis 2. This secondary oocyte starts to undergo meiosis, but again it does not finish the second meiosis. In fact, it also gets arrested. It also gets arrested at metaphase 2. I'll repeat again, the secondary oocyte starts to undergo meiosis 2, but it does not finish meiosis 2. In fact, it gets arrested at the metaphase 2. Then, when does it finish, sir? When does the meiosis 2 is over? The meiosis 2 is completed here. The meiosis 2 is completed only when during the fertilization. When the sperm comes in contact with the ovum, or the secondary oocyte, not the sperm, the secondary oocyte which is present inside the Graafian follicle, when the sperm comes in contact with the secondary oocyte, the meiosis 2 is completely finished, and which results in the formation of the second polar body and also the ovum. So when does the second meiosis get over? Second meiosis is finished only when the sperm comes in contact with the ovum. That's right. Now that is your your oogenesis. Now here you need to understand little structures about your folliculogenesis also. So for that you need to understand primary oocyte is surrounded by a layer of granulosa cells. Secondary oocyte is surrounded by a layer of granulosa cells. Now these granulosa, once the primary oocyte is surrounded by granulosa cells, this is called as primary follicle. It's called as primary follicle. Now this primary follicle gets surrounded by more layers of granulosa cells. This is called as secondary follicle. Primary follicle to secondary follicle. Primary follicle to secondary follicle. One thing to be noted here, both primary as well as secondary follicle, has primary oocyte. It has what? It has primary oocyte is present. Primary oocyte is present inside primary as well as secondary follicle. Now the secondary follicle starts to form a fluid filled cavity. Secondary follicle forms a fluid filled cavity and a new theca is found, and that is called as your tertiary follicle. That is called as what? Tertiary follicle. And inside the tertiary follicle we find secondary oocyte. Inside tertiary follicle we find secondary oocyte. and subsequently tertiary follicle becomes Graafian follicle, which eventually ruptures open and releases the ovum. There it is, the complete oogenesis. If you have any doubt under oogenesis, go check out my video on Vedantu NEET English, where I have completely described the oogenesis, spermatogenesis, complete human reproduction I have completed. Go check out my videos there. That is human reproduction marathon. Or if you have any doubt, let me know in the comment section. I'll clear it for you. The question says, draw a labeled diagram and section through the ovary. For your convenience, for my convenience, I have a diagram here. I have a diagram of the ovary which is given in your NCERT. Let's decode it. Now, if you look at the structure of the ovary, we know the ovary is present on the left as well as the right. This is a section of any one of them. So let's just assume this is a section of the ovary which is present towards your right side. This is a section of the ovary which is present towards the right hand side. Now if you look closely at the structure of the ovary, we have primary follicle. Let me change the color. Primary follicle. Now what is primary follicle? Primary follicle is nothing but primary oocyte. Primary oocyte. One second. Primary oocyte plus layers of granulosa cells. Single layer of granulosa cells. So primary oocyte plus a layer of granulosa cells is your primary follicle. Now this primary follicle, right, the primary follicle starts to accumulate more layers of granulosa cells. If a primary layer accumulates or it gets covered by more granulosa cells, it transforms into secondary follicle. This right here is a secondary follicle. And in case of secondary follicle, you can also see a formation of a new theca. You can also see a formation of new theca here. Now the secondary follicle transforms into tertiary follicle. The secondary follicle transforms into tertiary follicle. Now here you need to know the important characteristics of your tertiary follicle. The first one is the fluid filled cavity. The first one is the fluid filled cavity known as antrum. A fluid filled cavity called as antrum is a characteristic feature of your tertiary follicle. Along with that, the theca here now gets differentiated into theca interna and theca externa. Clear? Now Graafian follicle the tertiary follicle then develops into Graafian follicle. This is the holy mother, that is the amazing Graafian follicle. This Graafian follicle is the most advanced type of follicle in the structure of the ovary. Now Graafian follicle, here inside the Graafian follicle we have the secondary oocyte. Even in the case of a tertiary follicle, we have secondary oocyte. But in the case of primary follicle and secondary follicle, we have what? We have primary oocyte. This is a very important point with respect to your boards and also with respect to your NEET. So remember, in case of your primary follicle, as well as secondary follicle, inside that we will have what? We will have primary oocyte. But in the case of tertiary follicle and in the case of your Graafian follicle, we have secondary oocyte. The secondary oocyte becomes ovum later on, that is after the second meiosis, which results in the formation of ovum. The same ovum which will be released, by the rupturing of the Graafian follicle, and the process is known as ovulation. And a very important question here, ovulation happens on the 14th day of menstrual cycle because of the LH surge, which is happening because of increased levels of LH at the 14th day. That's when the ovulation happens. That's when the ovum is released from the Graafian follicle by rupturing it. But what happens to the remaining? What happens to the remaining of the Graafian follicle? The remaining of the Graafian follicle turns into corpus luteum, and the same corpus luteum has an extremely important role, that is production of progesterone, and the produced progesterone maintains the endometrium for the implantation. And once the LH is dropped, the corpus luteum degenerates. If corpus luteum degenerates, progesterone levels go down. If progesterone level goes down, what happens? The endometrium gets disrupted. If endometrium is destroyed, bleeding happens, and that's how menstruation takes place. I just explained you menstruation and also the structure of the ovary altogether. Draw a labeled diagram of Graafian follicle. I know this is little about NCERT. NCERT doesn't give a proper diagram of Graafian follicle, but do not worry. I have an image created by our own group. We have the follicle, that is Graafian follicle diagram. Now, what you need to know here, what you need to understand in this entire structure is only few things. The first and foremost is the oocyte, which is present in the center. The first and the foremost is the oocyte, which is present in the center. The oocyte which is present here is your secondary oocyte. Secondary oocyte. Now, this secondary oocyte, when it comes in contact with the sperm, secondary oocyte turns to your secondary oocyte is released and becomes ovum. So, secondary oocyte. Now, one more thing which you need to know here is the theca externa and theca interna. Internal theca, external theca. This was seen even in your tertiary follicle. Then a fluid-filled antrum. This is a fluid-filled antrum which is also present in your tertiary follicle. Then you need to know zona pellucida. Zona pellucida layer is only seen in the Graafian follicle. The secondary oocyte forms a separate layer around it. So their layer around the secondary oocyte is called as zona pellucida. Now the layer outside the zona pellucida is called as corona radiata. This is also given in your NCERT. Now, outside corona radiata, you also have a cells of your cumulus orphous cells. Cumulus orphous cells are present external to the corona radiata. Those are the important things which you need to know. Mostly, this question will be not asked in your NEET examination because it is little above your NCERT, but you need to know what is the structure of Graafian follicle, how it looks from inside. Question number 15, it is name the functions of the following. They're asking us to define the functions. The first one is corpus luteum, then endometrium, acrosome, sperm tail, and fimbrium. Now let's look at the corpus luteum first. Let's go one by one. The first one is your corpus luteum. To understand the function, you need to know corpus luteum comes from where. So we know when the Graafian follicle ruptures, when the Graafian follicle ruptures open, it releases the ovum. The leftover of the Graafian follicle gets converted to corpus luteum, and it is the same corpus luteum which produces a hormone known as progesterone. And progesterone does what? Progesterone maintains the endometrium. It maintains the endometrium. So what is the function of corpus luteum? The function of corpus luteum is to produce progesterone, which helps in maintaining of endometrium. Then what is the function of endometrium, sir? The function of endometrium is very, very simple. The main function of endometrium is to be prepared for implantation. The main function of endometrium is to be prepared for implantation. So implantation happens of what? Implantation of your fertilized ovum. Once the ovum is fertilized, it starts to undergo zygote forms. Once the zygote is formed, that is first cell, zygote starts to undergo cleavage. We have blastomere, blastocyst. Blastomere, we have morula, we have blastocyst. The blastocyst travels down the fallopian tube, reaches the uterus, and when it reaches the uterus, it undergoes implantation on the wall of the endometrium. So wall of the endometrium is extremely important for implantation. Wall of the endometrium is extremely important for implantation. Clear? That is the function of endometrium. Now, what if the implantation does not happen? What if there is no fertilization? If there is no fertilization, the corpus luteum degenerates. If corpus luteum degenerates, progesterone is not produced. If progesterone is not produced, endometrium is not maintained. If endometrium is not maintained, then bleeding takes place, that is your menstruation. Now let's look at the structure of acrosome. To understand the function of acrosome, look at the structure of acrosome. We know acrosome is present. Acrosome is present on the head of the sperm. Which part of the head? The anterior portion of the head. At the cap-like structure, in the anterior portion of the head, we have a cap-like structure known as acrosome. And this acrosome has numerous number of enzymes. Acrosome, the cap-like structure known as acrosome, has numerous enzymes. And these enzymes help in dissolving the layer of the ovum when when the fertilization takes place. So during fertilization, the enzymes which are present in your acrosome help in dissolving the layer of ovum. Once the ovum layer is dissolved, the male nuclei gets transferred and fertilization takes place. Now acrosome is also derived from which part, which body? Golgi body. Let me know in the comment section if you know any enzyme name, any example name. If you know, let me know in the comment section. That was your acrosome. Now look, the next one is the sperm tail. The sperm tail is very simple function. The main function of a sperm tail is motility. Motility. Now when the sperm initially has a very undulated movement, that is not a very active movement initially starting, but after capacitation, where does capacitation takes place? Capacitation takes place in the female reproductive tract. What is capacitation? Capacitation is activation of the sperm. So once activation of sperm takes place, the tail will move like a whiplash, and it becomes more active, and there is a faster movement of your tail. Look at the last one. The last one is the function of your fimbriae. They're asking you the function of fimbriae. Fimbriae is a finger-like structure. Fimbriae is a finger-like structure. This right here. Fimbriae is a finger-like structure which is present on the infundibulum of fallopian tube. Function, simple function. The function of fimbriae is to collect the released ovum by the ovary. So ovary, whenever the ovary releases the ovum, the collection of the ovum is done by fimbriae. Clear? Those were the different functions of different structures which is given in your NCERT. Identify the true and false statement. Correct each false statement to make it true. So we're asking you explanation also. Let's quickly understand. The first one, androgens are produced by Sertoli cells. We know androgens are produced. First of all, this is a false statement because we know androgens are produced by Leydig cells. We know androgen is produced by your Leydig cells. So this is a false statement. Next statement. The next statement says spermatozoa gets nutrition. Spermatozoa gets nutrition from Sertoli cells. This statement is absolutely correct. Why? Because we know Sertoli cells are also called as nurse cells, and these are the cells which provide nutrition to the growing spermatozoa. Next question. Leydig cells are found in the ovary. Absolutely false. Why? Because we know Leydig cells are found in the interstitial space, and hence we know the Leydig cells are also called as interstitial cells, which is a similar labeling which you can see in your NCERT. So this is a false statement. Leydig cells are synthesis androgen. Absolutely true, because we know Leydig cells provides androgen, which is responsible for the sexual secondary characteristics. Oogenesis takes place in the corpus luteum. It's a false statement straight up, because we know oogenesis takes place inside the ovary, and once ovary matures, it becomes Graafian follicle. Graafian follicle ruptures open, releases the ovum. The leftover part that turns into corpus luteum. So oogenesis cannot take place in the corpus luteum. The function of corpus luteum is to produce a progesterone which maintains the endometrium. Next question. Menstrual cycle ceases during the pregnancy. Absolutely true. It's a direct line from your NCERT. The next question. Presence or absence of hymen. I repeat, presence or absence of hymen is not a reliable indicator of virginity or sexual intercourse. Absolutely true, because you cannot determine based on the fact that just hymen is present or not. You cannot indicate a female is virgin or not, because there could be other factors which could result in the breaking of hymen, such as certain hormonal imbalance, stress, or even certain sports activities such as your horseback riding or wrestling activities. So all those different events can also lead to breakage of hymen. So hence you cannot solely determine that intercourse or sexual experience is indicating of virginity or not in the case of your presence or absence of hymen. So that is again a true statement, that is presence or absence of hymen is not a reliable indicator, because there are other factors also involved in breakage of hymen, indicator of virginity and sexual experience. The question goes like, what is menstrual cycle? First part of the question. which hormones regulate the menstrual cycle. Now, first we'll try to understand what exactly is menstrual cycle first. Now, first point, where does it happen? Right, where does it happen? The first point to answer to that is it occurs. The menstrual cycle is a reproductive cycle. First of all, let me just write it here. It is a, let me erase that. It is a reproductive cycle. It is a reproductive cycle. Very important to know. Reproductive cycle, because if the cycle did not exist, there would be no conceive of a baby. So very important cycle. It is a reproductive cycle which occurs in the primates. Primates, which primates? The female. In the female primates. So this is a phenomena which occurs in the female primates. First important point. Second, what exactly is menstrual cycle? Menstrual cycle is a sequence of event. What is menstrual cycle? Menstrual cycle is a sequence of events. Sequence of events that begins with, once again, why is it going haywire? One second, let me just correct it. Change the pen. That begins with one menstruation, and ends with the next one. So that is, it is a sequence of events. So one menstruation starts, and then we have many stages, and finally the menstruation ends with again a menstruation. So what exactly happens in menstruation? So in order to understand what exactly happens in menstruation, you need to know the following stages. What are the different stages in menstruation? The first stage, I told you, it is a sequence of event. It is a sequence of events. So one event after another event takes place, and which goes around a circle. So first event, the first phase is menstruation. The first is the menstruation, which is also a resultant of bleeding. So we can also call menstruation phase as a bleeding phase, where the bleeding takes place. Followed by we have the follicular phase. Now during the follicular phase, the follicle, the primary follicle, the secondary, tertiary, Graafian follicle starts to develop. All this development of the follicles is called as follicular phase. Then follicular phase is followed by the ovulation, which happens at the 14th day. Ovulation happens at the 14th day, also called as LH surge. The last and the final event here is the luteal phase. Where the endometrium becomes secretory. It produces secretions. That is the luteal phase. And all these different phases are controlled by different hormones. That's right. That's the second part of our question. What are the different hormones involved in the controlling of the menstruation? The first hormone is the development of follicles. I mentioned about follicular phase. So in follicular phase, there needs to be development of follicles, right? And the hormone which is responsible for the development of the follicles is follicular stimulating hormone, also known as FSH. Follicular stimulating hormone is the first hormone which has a role in the menstrual cycle. The second hormone is your luteinizing hormone, also called as LH. Luteinizing hormone plays a very important role in the production to make sure that the corpus luteum is maintained. The next hormone is estrogen. Now, when we spoke about the development of follicles, all these follicles will initiate the release of estrogen, which helps in building up the endometrium. Very important role. The role of estrogen is to build up the endometrium to make it ready for implantation. The fourth hormone which is responsible for the menstrual cycle is your progesterone. Now progesterone role is very simple. All it needs to do is maintain the endometrium, and progesterone is released by corpus luteum. Corpus luteum is maintained by LH. Clear? So hopefully you understood the concept. If you do not understand the concept of menstrual cycle, you can go watch my video on Vedantu NEET English where I have explained beautifully the entire process of menstruation. Please go watch it. That is Vedantu NEET English. Baswarat sir, you can just type it. You can find the video live. It was a live session. You can go watch it. What is parturition? Straight forward question. Which hormones, multiple, which hormones are involved in induction of parturition? Straight up question, straight up answer. The answer to the first part here, is parturition is a process. Parturition is a process in which a fetus or a baby is delivered. Parturition is a process in which a fetus or a baby is delivered from the mother through the birth canal. It is also called as what? It is also called as childbirth. It is also called as childbirth. So childbirth and parturition means the same, that is delivering of a baby or delivery of the fetus is called as parturition. Now the second part of the question is, which are the hormones, right? Which are the hormones involved in parturition? Simple question. The most important hormone which plays a key role, the major role in parturition is oxytocin. The first and the key role which is played by is oxytocin. Now oxytocin functions. What is the function? Let me tell you. I'll tell you what is the function of oxytocin. The main function of oxytocin is contraction. Contraction of the smooth muscles of myometrium. So it helps in contraction of the smooth muscles of myometrium, which induces the further contractions, and if the contraction is big enough, the baby is delivered. Second hormone. We know this contraction can be very, very painful. So we need a hormone to take care of the contractions also, right? So the hormone which helps in taking this control. The taking control, I mean like relaxing the mother. That is relaxin. The second hormone which helps in relaxes is called as relaxin. It helps in relaxing the pelvic ligaments. It relaxes the pelvic ligaments and which helps the mother. Now, one question, if I remember correctly, one question was asked in the NEET examination. From where does the first signal for parturition originates from? I repeat the question. Which organ is responsible for the first signal? Right? Which organ is responsible for the first signal for parturition? The answer. Pause the video. If you do not know the answer, pause the video. Try to answer the question. If you know, awesome. So the answer here is, if you know, obviously you're supposed to go comment now. The answer is the fully developed fetus and also the placenta. And this signal is called as fetal ejection reflex. Amazing, right? So those are the questions which you need to answer. Also a NEET level question which is also important. So what is parturition? Delivery of the baby. Hormones, two hormones, oxytocin and relaxin. Those are the answers. In the society, in our society, the women are often blamed for giving birth to daughters. I repeat, in a society, the women are often blamed for giving birth to daughters. Can you explain why this is not correct? Biologically speaking, this is completely wrong. I'll tell you why. If we know every human has 23 pair of chromosomes. 23 pair of chromosomes. Out of 23 pair of chromosomes, the males has, this is your, once again, let me draw it properly. The human male has 22 pair of autosomes plus 20 pair of autosomes plus the two sex chromosomes, that is X chromosome and also the Y chromosomes. So the human male has 22 autosomes and then two sex chromosomes, that is X chromosomes and Y chromosomes, while the human female has 22 autosomes and also the sex chromosomes, that is X. Only the X type of chromosome is seen in the case of a female. So the egg which is released will always have the X chromosome. But in the case of your males, the sperm will have either X or Y. It is a 50-50% chance of chromosome when it comes to males. So whenever the X sperm carrying the X chromosome meets with the egg which has the X chromosome, which results in the XX, that is your female child. But when the sperm carrying the Y chromosome fuses with the egg, which results in the formation of XY, that is the male. So in reality, if you just look at the diagram which I mentioned here, if you look at the thing, in reality, it is the males. So in reality, it is the males which has the two types of sex chromosomes, that is either X or Y, which determine the sex of the baby, and hence it is the males who determine the sex of baby. So it is not right to blame the females. Actually, it is not right to blame at all, because we know children are blessing of God, and a male or a female child, it really doesn't matter as long as the child is healthy and doing really well. The question is, how many eggs are released by a human ovary in a month? Question number one. Question number two is, how many eggs do you think would have been released if the mother gave birth to identical twins? Second question. Third question is, would your answer change if the twins were born fraternal? Fraternal means non-identical twins. Fraternal means non-identical twins. Clear? Non-identical twins. Non-identical twins. The first answer is very simple. Every single month in the case of human females, one, right? The one egg is released. That's the first answer. The second question, how many eggs do you think have been released if the mother gave birth to identical twins? Let me tell you clearly, even in the case of identical twins, only one egg is released. That is, only one egg is released, and which is fertilized by only one sperm. One sperm, which results in the fertilization, that is one diploid zygote. And this diploid zygote splits into two different type of cells, and they develop separately. But since they develop from the same zygote, since the development of the fetus, two different fetus are happening from the same zygote, the genetic material is going to be the same, and hence the twins look alike. So the answer to the second question is again one egg. The third question is, would your answer change if the twins were born fraternally? It would change, because in case of fraternal twins, two eggs are released, and it is fertilized by two different sperms, and we obtain two diploid zygotes. Let me erase this. In the case of your fraternal non-identical twins, two zygotes are developed, and these two zygotes, they develop independently. Since the two zygotes develop independently, they have different genetic materials. Since they're developing from two different zygotes, they have different genetic materials, and they do not look alike. They might have some similarities, but they do not look very much alike compared to your identical twins. So in the case of normal conditions, one egg. In case of your identical twins, also one egg. But in the case of fraternal twins, that is non-identical twins, two eggs are released. How many eggs do you think were released? How many eggs do you think were released by the ovary of the female dog which gave birth to the 6 puppies? The answer is very simple, because we know dogs and rodents. We know dogs and rodents are what? Dogs and rodents are polyovulatory. Dogs and rodents are polyovulatory. The meaning of polyovulatory is that at one time during ovulation, at one specific time during ovulation, one ovary will release multiple eggs. So in polyovulatory condition, multiple eggs are released at one time during ovulation. Multiple eggs are released by the ovary during ovulation at one specific time. So the answer to the question, how many ovum or how many eggs released by the ovary of the female dog which gave birth to 6 puppies, is 6 eggs. It is 6 eggs. 6 eggs would have been released by the dog which gave birth to 6 puppies. That's the answer to this question. Very easy question, very simple concept. If you like the video and if you're enjoying the content, please like the video and subscribe to the channel if you do not want to miss any of the content on this channel, because on this channel it's going to get amazingly exciting, because we'll be solving a lot of questions related to your NCERT, related to your NEET, PYQs, examiner questions. Any questions which you have, please let us know in the comment section. We'll try to solve it for you. So this is Baswaraj. Until next time.